following this shooting up in Minneapolis.
Of course.
That's my home station.
Of course.
And so this has been awful. Apparently, she's a lawyer.
Yeah, I think she was a legal observer.
Mm-hmm. She was. They shot her in the face.
They did, and I've been following it. So if you want to talk about that, some we can as well.
Oh, absolutely, we can. Well, I can just a whole panoply of things. We can do that. So I'm going to come up let me just come up in 30 seconds just to make it nice and clean. Hello, Robert. I just had Cornell West on. He was wonderful.
Hmm.
Wonderful, wonderful. But I know this will be great. I'm glad to see you though, my dear friend.
I'm
And
glad to see you.
I'm looking forward to speaking with you and Harry.
Yeah, definitely.
So you let me know when that'll be good. We're up in 5. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a blessing to be with you today in this time of upheaval. So much is happening, so much is being revealed. I send special prayers out to the family, to the community of Minneapolis, but certainly to the family of this woman who remains unidentified. We do know that she was 37 years of age. We do know that she was a lawyer, but she was shot in the face by ICE. And there are conflicting stories. The Department of Homeland Secretary has come out with one story, but the police and the mayor and the video say something else. We need to talk about that because the question is, was this bound to happen? We'll be exploring this uh, over the next couple of hours. But first, we're going to talk about this and Venezuela and exploding healthcare costs and Social Security. There is a whole lot of ground to cover because while we are looking at Venezuela, and we should be looking at Cuba and Yemen and the Sudan and what's happening in the Sahel and Nigeria. There's a lot that's going on at the same time. We've got some domestic issues that we need to cover. There's a lot. And it's all connected because I guess the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, is that everything is happening at one time. So much is being revealed. A lot of things they would say you're wearing a tinfoil hat. Well, no, you're not conspiracy minded. You are connecting the dots today. I want you to meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share. Please, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. You help us with the algorithm when you do that. We're finding that as we go a month out from these shows, Alex, we might have 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million views. Wow. That's very interesting because that happened in a much more compressed period of time some years ago before my algorithm was messed with. So we're going to work on that, everybody. So help me, help us with independent media. Indeed, Alex has his finger on that pulse, and he is really someone who is a giant in that space. And we're going to be talking about that too, what it is that we can do, because so much of this story is being reported in a particular way because we now have cameras that are attached to our phones and we can get the story out ourselves, right? That's what Daniela Frazier, the 17-year-old in Minneapolis, did. A child, something in her lived experience made her send her 9-year-old cousin into the store. She said, "Do not come out until I get you. I will come in and get you. Don't move." And she is the young lady who taped the child who videoed the killing of George Floyd. Think about that. And here we are again, a lawyer, a woman who was shot in her face trying to drive away. Got to talk about that, everybody. And Venezuela. Uh, it was not a clean operation. There were at least 32 Cuban soldiers who were killed. About 80 people were killed. And that's what we know of at this time. We're still trying to figure out how they were able to walk into the presidential palace. That just something about this doesn't add up. And the indictment has changed. Yes, it turns out that President Maduro is not a narco terrorist. And they pivoted all over the place. You know, so let's talk about all the things that are going on right now. And have you tried to get your health care? Have you seen these premiums? They have exploded. Wow. I looked at what I have to pay, and Alex, Executive Director of Social Security Works, I said, wow, what am I going to do? Well, I've got to ante up, but wow, 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 this is a whole lot. So, number one, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Everybody meet me on X at Santita J. Meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Meet me here on YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and Instagram, Santita Jackson IG. Just look for me. Sometimes I have big hair, sometimes I don't. It's good to see you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah. No matter what else, we can't let them steal our joy. That's part of the fascist tactic, is to, try to make things overwhelming. Try to cow the people into, just subjugating themselves. And that's why it's so important that we never let them steal our joy. We never let them steal our community. We never let them just put their evil designs into our lives, and it gives us the power to stand up against their evil designs. And that's what they are. They're evil. We just witnessed the murder of a legal observer by an ICE thug. And let's be clear what ICE agents are. What a joke that is. These are folks who failed to become police officers, right? I mean, these are folks who couldn't cut it to join the military. These are folks who are either crypto fascists or just fascists. How many of the January 6th pardoned criminals are now masked ICE agents? These are not people who have been well trained and versed in law enforcement. No, that's not what he's built. He's built a secret police organization accountable to him alone, to Trump alone. And their objective is to sow terror. So if people are thinking that they mistakenly murdered someone, get it right. No, this was inevitable from the moment that they surged thousands of troops. There's 2,000 ICE agents in Minnesota right now. There's 10,000 soldiers off of the coast of Venezuela that has a population of like 23 million or something, and a military. 10,000 soldiers. They have 2,000 agents in Minneapolis and environs, right? Which is 4 times the size of the police force there. This is not a force that is bringing safety. And let me just be really clear. This is the part, if you listen to right-wing media, they exist in a fully different reality, but it's becoming so apparent that propaganda bubble is fake. Because you tell me point me to the news story about the ICE agents, heroically arresting a hardened criminal. You won't find it, because they're not doing that. You'll find lots of stories about them arresting day laborers at Home Depot. You'll find lots of stories of them going after grandmothers and our neighbors and the most law-abiding of people in this country who have come to this country as immigrants. I mean, that they're literally going to the court appearances of people who are trying to legally go through the process and arresting and deporting them from there. So this is not a force that is fighting criminals or terror, which is how they're painting it. This is a force that is terrorizing neighborhoods. This is a force that's been roundly objected and rejected by churches across this country and the world. The Pope, the Catholic Pope, has been coming again and again. The bishops in the U.S., that is not a liberal bunch of people, but the Catholic bishops are saying you're terrorizing people in this country. And that's what ICE is. It's a terrorizing force. So the fact that now today we have on video a man running after the car. So she's trying to get out of the way. Cars drive around her. She's not blocking any cars in. You can see it on the videos. Cars drive around her. They tell her to get out of the way. She's going to get out of the way, and he shoots this person in the face through her open driver's side window. This was an execution of a U.S. citizen who was doing absolutely nothing illegal. Nothing illegal. It is legal to observe ICE. You can't get in their way, but you can see cars going around her. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And immediately they start lying. Immediately the president on down are saying, she was driving at people, is danger. But we have video. We have video, Santita. This is not, there's no way. There's only one objective reality, right? They can spin all they want, but we can see what happened, and it was murder.
Yeah. So what do we do with that at this time, particularly? I mean, was this bound to happen?
It was so bound to happen that it's the joke of who could have foreseen, and you're like, literally everyone. You put a bunch of poorly trained people who are itching to cause violence. You give them guns. You give them the objective of terrorizing communities. And let's be clear, the reason this happened in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, is because the president and, Stephen Miller, his racist in chief, are on a roll demonizing Somali Americans and going after Congresswoman Ilhan Omar in sort of stoking this racist, xenophobic anger amongst their base. That's what the ICE agents are there for. It's to actually, it's just to gain political currency. That's what's going on. So of course this was bound to happen. And now what people need to do is first keep the family of the woman who was killed by agents of the federal government, an innocent woman, unarmed, not a danger to anyone, gunned down in the street. This is government violence against their perceived political enemies. Keep the family in our prayers, in our thoughts. If you are in the community, support the family and keep the entire community in our thoughts, in our prayers, and support the community and support those politicians and those people who are standing up and fighting back, because you brought up a long history that Minneapolis has of having to stand against state violence. And this is about as clear as you can get. So there's going to be people standing up and making their voices heard. You're going to see lies from the administration trying to demonize the woman who was murdered and anyone who stands against ICE. But you've already seen, Governor Walz there making very straightforward statements. Get out of Minnesota. They're not solve ICE. Get out of Minnesota. The mayor there, using colorful language to try to break through and let people know what happened, which is, you can see it on the video. ICE agents murdered a person. They are not bringing any sort of peace or justice or anything like that. They are bringing terror into democratic cities as a political tool to try to win elections. But I will say they're losing, they're scrambling. That's why we're seeing this escalation now. And there's going to be more and more as people get hurt more and more by the $1 trillion they cut out of healthcare, the hospitals closing, the nursing homes closing, Social Security services degrading. Life is getting worse for the American people. So of course, they're going to up the volume on things to try to distract from that. With Venezuela, they're going to try to do more things like that to take people and be like, Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe what I'm telling you. Donald Trump goes out there and says prices aren't going up. People know prices are going up. The Republicans are saying, oh, well, maybe we have a deal coming on healthcare. They've had years. They've had just year after year after year. They've said they are coming up with a solution on healthcare. They've got no plan. Their plan is to let people die. And they know that that is not something that they can stand. They can't get out there and sell, you're going to die. Remember, Joni Ernst tried it. And then she had to retire because it does not sell. So they are going to try to intimidate the American people, but the American people are more brave than these bullies. And it's always, important to remember that that's all they are, just a bunch of losers and bullies. And the American people united will always overcome the bullies, no matter who they are.
Well, do you see this as state violence, and would you equate this with what's happened with the healthcare system? Is that state violence as well?
I think it absolutely is. It's difficult because in the one case, it's so overt, right? There is a human with a gun taking the life of another person who poses no danger to them. It's just murder, right? It's just very straightforward. This person gets a paycheck and they murdered an American citizen for doing nothing more than disagreeing with the immigration enforcement policies of the current president. But if you rip healthcare away from people, I talk to people, they contact me and they hope that there is some sort of solution. Oh, my premiums just went up this much. I know that you work on this. Is that what can I do? And the answer right now is nothing. There is nothing you can do. You can pay if you can afford it. You can go without. And if you get sick or injured, bankrupt, you can go bankrupt. There's going to be more harm and more death. Yale Public Health School calculated as 56,000 people a year will die from now on because of the healthcare cuts. So that's absolute violence. And it's specifically aimed violence too, right? We know who it's going to hurt and kill the most. It's going to hurt and kill the most vulnerable in our society. So the oldest of the old, people with disabilities, seniors with disabilities. We know that racial and ethnic minorities are going to feel disproportionate harm from these policies. We know that. And so do they, by the way. That's, they know that. They know that these policies hurt the weakest people in society. And they do that on purpose because they know that the weakest people, the people who have the weakest voice, they're going to be the ones who aren't going to be able to fight back. How do what they are thinking, what the administration is thinking is, how is a 103-year-old in a memory care unit that's getting shut down? What are they going to do? Lobby against, right? So they understand where they're pointing their policies. It's similar to how ICE can't go after criminals. ICE could always go after criminals. So could the police. So could any of the federal police agencies, right? When they're criminals, you can always go after them. The thing is, criminals are good at crime, or at least, better than non-criminals. So they're hard. That's why you don't see any ICE stories about them busting some dangerous gang. ICE are cowards. They know how to go after day laborers in Home Depot parking lots. They go after those who are easiest and who don't fight back. And so when you're talking about state violence, I think it's important to see the totality of it. Their economic violence against the American people will lead to harm and death among the most marginalized people in our society. The healthcare cuts will definitely, the most harm and death will be in the most marginalized, the weakest in our society. And the same is going to be seen in the immigration enforcement. They're not going after criminals. They're not going after terrorists. They're going after the people who are easiest to go after. And in this case, a legal observer, a person who disagrees with those policies, and immigration is a civil enforcement policy. This is not criminal stuff. A person who was a legal witness, observer, I mean, from my reading of the news, that's who ICE put a gun in her open driver's side window and shot multiple times in the face to death. And that's the reality that we're in right now. But the thing that we have to do is, through this adversity, have our solidarity grow. We need to stand with everyone in Minneapolis, in the community that's most affected. We need to raise our voices together, and we cannot let them try to just change the story, because that's what they're going to try to do. Just change the story to something else. We need to stay focused and just demand that ICE get out of our cities. They're not helping anyone. They're not making anyone safer. ICE, get out of our cities, and we need mayors and governors to take the lead in that ask, standing with the people.
Do you think this could be a game changer, or will they deploy, that was Freudian, I guess, deploy more troops? Because it seems that even in the cold weather, people are gathering in Minneapolis. I mean, they are outraged by what has happened here. And this is, interestingly, this is in a stable, middle-class, white community in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a rainbow. And where George Floyd was killed was in a poorer Black area. But this happened in the middle of a neighborhood, right? How do you think that might shape this narrative?
They're going to try to paint the person who was murdered as a terrorist. We already know what their playbook is, and then they're going to try to say that this was some sort of anti-terror thing. That's their whole justification, that they can murder anyone, right? Blow up boats. They just say narco terrorists, right? And the president of the United States and the Secretary of Defense went in front. They gathered all the generals and all of the shot callers in the military in an unprecedentedly stupid meeting, where they then said that they wanted the military to practice pacification on U.S. cities, right? Like it's not like they're hiding what they're doing and what they want to do. But what they will try to do is tell a story that is divorced from the facts. And so we need to ensure that we're telling a story that is truthful, that is, and the only lucky thing is that the people are brave, and there was many people who actually filmed exactly what happened. Now that it is in a, I don't know the geography well of Minneapolis. I've been there multiple times, but in a middle class neighborhood, as you say. What I've seen from other states, like in Chicago, some of and I joke about it, but it's with tons of love. I've seen dudes who look like they should be like in LL Bean catalogs, the models selling puffer vests for the fall. And I would not have expected them to be the ones putting themselves in harm's way for their neighbors between these agents of coercive state force. But that's exactly what they were doing. And so I feel like it is sort of regardless of where ICE is targeting. We've seen people come together and reject ICE because everyone can use their eyes. Everyone sees they're not arresting criminals. They're not arresting terrorists. They're arresting day laborers. They're arresting caregivers and grandmothers. They're arresting people who, to be honest, it's people who show more bravery waking up every day and going to do the job that they're doing. Just in that moment, they have to show bravery that Stephen Miller has never even imagined in his life, because he's a little slug coward. They're targeting the hardest working people who are trying to follow the rules, and everyone can see that. So you never know what actually catches and breaks through. But the hallmarks are somewhat similar, right? Like when there is this video evidence and we see it, and we're going to learn more, but we see that this person is trying to comply. We see that ICE is giving contradictory instructions. One of them saying, move out of the way. The other one saying, get out of the car. She's trying to move out of the way. The one reaches up and shoots her in the face multiple times. And I think...
And they didn't even shoot her to try and apprehend her, disable her. They shot her in the face.
Absolutely.
What is that?
Well, I'm telling you, the big thing is that we suffer from a sort of like optimism in this country. It's one of our greatest strengths and weaknesses. Like, it's hard for people to really understand and believe. We've hired a bunch of losers into ICE, like people who are not qualified for any other job. That's who we're hiring into ICE. We're just giving them a gun and saying, go out there. And this is the result, right? When a person doesn't even have the minimal training on use of force, they think that this is justified because they think this is their job. And in many ways, they might not be wrong. Like, I don't know if Stephen Miller is celebrating right now, right? Like, it is not clear to me that he's not saying, yes, this is what we want. Right now, we can really turn the tap of violence on.
But let me ask you this. I mean, is this not like designed to break the American spirit? I mean, because, you're frightening people, but that neighborhood, the Americans increasingly are not frightened. When you really look at the American Revolution, Americans have revolution in our bones. We've got a lot of issues. There's no question about that. But it's kind of encoded in our DNA to say, hey, wait a minute. What did they say more than 250 years ago? Don't tread on me.
I do think that it is absolutely part of the American identity, and that says, don't tell me what to do. The government doesn't know better than me on how I should live my life. And, you can call that in a million ways, rugged individualism, whatever it is. It's been distorted by corporations and the Republicans to mean like, oh, yeah, so therefore, give you pay your taxes and don't get health care. And the billionaires don't pay their taxes and they get everything they want, including wars in other countries to make oil executives billions. But at its kernel, that individualism is a good thing. It's an understanding that we have to understand all power comes from us, from the people. And it is only by the consent of the governed that the government has any power at all. And so I don't think that you're going to see any sort of cowing of the American people. I could be wrong, but I go out and we organize, and it is still, people are so pissed right now. And they're just starting to really feel the pinch of that healthcare cuts that are going to just decimate people. And, the price is continuing to go up, but people are so pissed right now. I don't see them being afraid. I see every right-thinking person being like, this was obviously going to happen. We knew this was going to happen, and it's Donald Trump's fault. It's Donald Trump's fault, and the Republicans in Congress for letting him get away with this. Everything he said about why he's doing stuff is a lie. He said he was going to go after criminals and terrorists. That's a lie. He said there's some sort of emergency caused by immigration. That's a lie, right? Every step of the way has been a lie, and the American people aren't falling for it. Or some people, the scales are falling from their eyes, and they're seeing Donald Trump for what he is, which is a scared old man who's not well, whose time is limited, and who's dedicated to enacting revenge on his enemies and enriching himself and his cronies and his family as much as possible. And the American people aren't standing for it. And I just think that will grow.
Alex, as we are looking at Minneapolis, because this is what we dealt with in Chicago with the people who were pulled out of their apartment building in the middle of the night, and the place was already should have been condemned. And the residents who had been paying their rent had been voicing their complaints, and no one had paid attention to them. But now the building's being sold for pennies on the dollar, and they can renovate it because the Obama Center is nearby. So, okay,
and they flew Black Hawk helicopters in, and they busted in the doors, and they said it's filled with terrorists, and they arrested children in the streets, right? We all saw it. This was sort of early on, so maybe there were still some people who were like, well, maybe it was all filled with terrorists. I don't know. How many charges were there in that entire operation? Goose egg, 0, because they weren't criminals. You know that. Yeah. We all know that. We knew that at the time, but more people know that now because their playbook is really straightforward. They go after people who they think are weak and who they think they can bully, and then they lie to the American people that they're, sending these really dangerous criminals and terrorists to jail and deporting them, and that's not what's happening.
Is that not what we saw in Venezuela? I mean, I'm just seeing picking on people who we think are weak, or certainly they don't have the strength. What does they say? Might makes right. It shouldn't be that way. Right should make might, but might makes right here. We took a sovereign president and his wife out of their beds and brought them here, and then changed the indictment. We said he was a narco-terrorist, but then we took fentanyl. We took the drugs out of the indictment. Help me with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear you can try to
do you think like a through line here?
Yeah, you can try to make like a rubric that oh yeah, here's illegal. No, it's really straightforward. If you have bribed Donald Trump or you're his crony, his buddy, like the former president of Honduras, who was convicted in U.S. courts, convicted and sentenced to 40 years in jail. In prison. That man was a cocaine kingpin. He pardoned that guy. And then with Maduro, he's pretending that there's some sort of, Venezuela is this big hub of drug activity. I'm sure there's drugs that go through there, but Venezuela is not a big drug trafficking state. That's not what Venezuela is. What Venezuela is the state that sits atop the largest oil reserves in the world. And Donald Trump is, he's basically saying, not in the court indictments, but on TV, he's saying that. He's like, yeah, this is definitely about controlling their oil. Now, Maduro himself, he's deeply unpopular. There's tons of sanctions against his country. The economic catastrophe is not his alone. But
wait a minute, it's not his. We were choking the country.
Yeah.
We killed their revenue stream. You know what? To digress a bit, I saw them do this to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, for the last 10, 15 years of his life, was negotiating with Sony because they owed him so much money that he would have bankrupted the company. He sold more than 1 billion records in his lifetime, Alex. And you could not buy, when they wanted to choke him, you could not buy a Michael Jackson CD until the afternoon that he died. Because then we still had record stores. The record store, it was shocking. I remember one of my brothers called me from the record store because, we had known him, and it was just like, I got to go get some of these CDs like right now. And they were pulling them out the back by the crates full. And, wait a minute. People criticize our president, and we do that, but do we have the right to go in and take? That is decimating and devastating to a people to watch their president dragged out without any dignity. We haven't gotten over Kennedy, and you and I both missed that.
I will also say, though, that the U.S., we have arrested. It's like the military went in and took Noriega, who was working hand in glove with the CIA before that, right? I mean, like the U.S. It does. This is hearkening back to the bad old days of American adventurism in South and Central America during the Cold War, when we put in place some of the most bloodthirsty right-wing dictatorships the world has known. And before that in Jakarta, if you've never read Bivens' book, The Jakarta Method, I think it should be required reading for everybody, because what we're seeing is that coming home to the United States. We're seeing the onshoring of our pacification tactics and strategy that we have taught right-wing strongmen around the world for decades, for generations, on how to control a country. So what they're doing in Venezuela is absolutely, a textbook thing. It's why it went off so well, is because it wasn't Donald Trump who planned it, right? This is the blob. The blob is what people call the foreign policy apparatus in Washington, D.C. It's a generally bipartisan, incredibly warmongering, defense contractor laden, entity that controls our foreign policy in the United States. So the blob is getting exactly what it wants, and deposing Maduro in this fashion. Now, the problem is what comes next. And, this is where Donald Trump, I think, I've seen nothing that the man has done to indicate that this is like a well thought through plan. I think he wakes up every day and sort of makes up what he's going to do and his reasons for that. But at its root, this is about controlling resources. The largest oil reserves in the world are under Venezuela. And they're pretty open about it. They did not like that Maduro, because of the U.S. economic sanctions on the country, basically had no one to deal with except for China and Russia and Cuba and others who are on that side of U.S. Economic sanctions and power. And this is trying to put that oil under U.S. Control. But that it's well thought out. I mean, everything about this reminds me of Mission Accomplished, right? I do remember that. I remember George W. Bush putting on the flight vest, getting flown in like he's some sort of, fighter jet pilot. Right?
Top Gun. Come on.
Top Gun. And then it says Mission Accomplished above that. And that was just the beginning of the phase of chaos, bloodshed, and everything bad in the region. So I am hoping that partners and neighbors, you have Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, Spain, and others condemning and calling for the rule of law and the respect of international law. But it's really, I don't want to go too far out onto foreign policy because domestic policy is more my bag. But I will say it's also the way he keeps talking about hemisphere. This is almost like a dare to China to not invade Taiwan, right? Like the whole idea of this Trump Monroe doctrine is that the U.S. just gets to control things in our hemisphere because we're a superpower. Now, if you extend that as a sort of philosophy, then other superpowers can control things in their hemisphere, in their backyards. So
the Club of Rome wrote a paper to this effect in 1974, in which they really divided the superpowers. They would have their own spheres of influence. So you would not have global powers as much as you would have hemispheric and regional powers. And they did that with the United States. I saw that map several months ago, and then I pulled it back up again. But one of the things that I think and help me with this, I think we need to be careful. Trump is a personality, but the people there are people behind him. The people who run the world are the financiers, the money people. And then they have politicians who they run. And then the politicians run the media. And then the media shape the narrative for the rest of us, right? I mean, because when I'm looking at Peter Thiel, who does not believe that we should vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching them create corporate cities that they will basically have boards of directors. They are subverting democracy within our borders, and we're not even discussing it. That's what they're doing. And they're observing everything that we do because Palantir, that's the biggest CIA contractor. I mean, and while we look at this guy, someone who is struggling with his health, that's clear. I don't glory in that. Someone who's 80. JD Vance is 40, right? I mean, they have Stephen Miller. Is he 40? Might be. I mean, they.
I think he's younger. He just looks older because evil ages you.
Well, now there's that part.
He looks like Gargamel.
You are doing too many things. That's right. There's no Dorian Gray here. Not at all. I mean, but you're right, because anger does that to you, because every time you see him, he never looks joyous, never looks happy, and he's always spreading misery. That having been said, I think we have to look at the people who are moving the levers of power. They're the ones who are really, really doing it. And because Trump already told you when he was running for president, hey, he went to the oil people. He said, you know what? You get me in, I'll get you what you want. What did they say? OBJ said to the military contractors, you get me in, I'll give you your war. I mean, that's what they do. And I'm just, I'm watching them. What I was reading, in addition to all of this, they've cut $10 billion from these child care programs. I mean, our children are going to go hungry. They're not going to be cared for. What is going on here? Social Security, come on. What's it? They're closing. Thankfully, you've been able to keep some of the offices open. Tell us about that. I mean,
but they are hell bent. Service degradation is real. There's a Washington Post article went in depth. Every metric that they looked at, it's getting worse. And now the new directive is to restrict access to the offices even more. They said they want to reduce office visits by 50%. And that means that people will not have access to the information that they need if they have problems with their Social Security payments, their checks, which are also multiplying. There's more and more problems and fewer avenues for people to fix those problems. This is all part of it. And yes, the money people are the ones who drive everything. And so again, there's that sort of wonderful and annoying American optimism that says, oh, well, they can't be, bloodthirsty idiots. They are the richest people in the world. They must have some amount of goodness and intelligence to them. We have them. You can listen to what they say. They hate people. They want to extract as much wealth for themselves as possible and pacify the people so that the people cannot rise up and say, hey, why do you get everything? Why do you get the fruits of our labor? And you talked about Peter Thiel. You can listen to him talk. He says this. His philosopher du jour, Curtis Yarvin, I think he's a little bit out of favor right now, but he was JD Vance's guru for a while. I mean, they openly talk. They call it the Dark Enlightenment, and it is basically enslaving the American people in a complex system of surveillance. You noted Palantir. Everything you do is just creation of data for these corporations to know more about you and then pacify you, some through pleasure, right? You're seeing, you see that with it. I'm going to just end at breads and circuses, Santita. So, right, this is as old as it gets. But that's what they're doing. They try to pacify the population so that they can continue to extract these astronomical amounts of wealth And I have said it once, but if your listeners have never read Bivens' The Jakarta Method, it's literally just the playbook from DOD developed in the 40s and the 50s. It was shaped and made even more powerful through the Vietnam era. Another book to add to that is Yasha Levine's Surveillance Valley on what the internet and the data companies like Peter Thiel, who made his money with Elon Musk, with PayPal, right? That's not genius stuff. That was just people are going to need to buy things on the internet. But the internet and its creation was actually as a pacification tool. So the idea of what they're trying to do, what is pacification? So it is eliminating those who would stand against the right-wing oligarchy that is put in place by the right-wing corporate interests of America. Sometimes they let a semblance of democracy through, but only as long as it serves their interests. And the moment it doesn't, they pull it away. And so now you're seeing, they're trying to use this bullying, now we're going to do Cuba and then we're going to go to Greenland and on and on and on. But all of that is a tactic to keep people from standing up and fighting back and knowing that all the power is with us. And so.
But what are you seeing? What are you seeing with people? Because I think you are seeing, because you're organizing. Aren't you seeing people fight back?
Oh my God, they're fighting back at levels I've never seen before. So the pacification is not working. They're trying to bring the Jakarta Method here, but there's two things. One of them is that, and I hate to say this because, I don't want to will something into existence, but the pacification efforts on the armed side are not at all as brutal as what other dictate, right? Like in Indonesia, they just murdered left-wing intellectuals, right? I mean, hundreds of thousands, millions of people were murdered globally during this era of the Cold War, where the U.S. supported right-wing dictatorships all across the globe as long as they would keep, the people from rising up and getting organized. But America does not seem to be scared. And also the instruments of terror have not been fully actualized onto American people. There's a lot of bluster, and people are dying. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I mean, they literally just shot a person in the face. That's told that happened. But they don't have the apparatus. And part of it is by virtue of the federated nature of the United States, right? You do have governors who can stand up. You have municipal police forces. There's not one centralized force. And that's why he created ICE and empowered it, is to try to begin to centralize that secret police, because that's key to taking over a country and pacifying it and holding it. But you're seeing that there are many layers of pushback, checks and balances in this country. They're trying to rip them down as fast as possible. But generally, the biggest check is that the American people are not interested. They're not interested in Stephen Miller and Donald Trump's, gab. They don't buy it. They're not seeing criminals and terrorists being apprehended by ICE. They're seeing priests getting shot in the face with pepper balls, and now legal observers being murdered on video, right? That's what they're seeing with their own eyes. They're also feeling the effects of looting of our healthcare system to the tune of $1.5 trillion, so that these billionaires can go buy another golden helicopter to fly onto their other golden yacht. And the American people, my joke is, if you go onto the corner right now with a megaphone and start talking about, how healthcare cuts are killing us, in an hour, you'll have a crowd of 100 people. That energy is still out there, and we're building and will continue to build and Donald Trump is not going to win. Donald Trump, he might be asleep when he loses, but the people behind him aren't going to win either. Singer's not going to win. Thiel, Elon Musk, all of them, Wall Street, they're going to lose because the American people, there's no bright spot to this, to what we're going through. It just is also true that through great adversity, solidarity grows. And you're finding a lot of ordinary people finding that extraordinary thing inside of them, which gives them the bravery to lead. And when the people lead, then politicians follow. And I think Donald Trump and the Republicans' days are numbered, and they're not going to get to full fascist takeover. They're trying their hardest, but I think they're going to lose the House. They know they're going to. They're hanging on by one right now. And then it's going to just be subpoenas all day, every day, exposing the criminality that has been just breathtaking. It's just going to be not since Teapot Dome scandal, but now we're going to set a new level of criminality emanating from the White House. And all of that is going to be exposed, including the redacted co-conspirators in the Epstein files. Donald Trump supposed, what he said to Marjorie Taylor Greene were his friends. That's why he couldn't release the files, because his friends would get hurt. And then they redacted the names of the co-conspirators. All of that is coming out. All of that is coming out. And the American people are going to demand that it comes out, and then they're going to take action based on the perverse evilness that it exposes.
Alex, I have a couple minutes left here, but I want to give them to you because as you're talking about fighting back, I'm struck by one of your latest campaigns. During the Depression era, a lot of great things were done. Among them, hiring and underwriting our great artists. And when you go to Radio City Music Hall, you see it. You see it in different places around the country. I remember Jackie Kennedy Onassis was fighting to save, Pennsylvania Station 40 plus years ago. Because some of the most magnificent works of art in this young country were put in some of these wonderful edifices, public spaces. And you've been trying to save some of them at the Social Security building. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like, with everything else going on, that this is a small thing. But the truth is that, art and music and culture is the fabric of who we are. It's actually why our country's worth fighting for, right? It shows who we are. And I started talking about, you can't let them steal our joy. You can't let them erase our art, our music, our identity. And so along with the destruction of Social Security, closing offices, Donald Trump right now is taking bulldozers and lining them up, and he's trying to destroy the Wilbur Cohen building in Washington, D.C. It's called the Sistine Chapel of New Deal art. It is just filled with art from the New Deal, especially this mural by Ben Shahn that is the origin of Social Security. It shows, this was before Social Security, why we needed to work together to create this great system, and this is what it delivered. And it is a beautiful, beautiful building filled with art. And Donald Trump has fast-tracked it with GSA, who's basically the federal government's landlord, or they control the real estate, to try to destroy this building. And so we're going to block it. We are not going to let them destroy it. We have a campaign going on, and you can go to stopthedemolition.org and find out what's going on, sign up to receive the emails. But we'll have open letters with artists, historians, art historians, We're going to get members of Congress involved. We're going to get truth tellers like yourself. And this is a symbol. It is a symbolic thing, right? Like it's not as important as the life that was lost, but it is symbolic of what they're trying to do, which is erase the American story. And so it's part and parcel. It's the same fight. We can't let the forces of autocracy, of fascism, erase our history of solidarity and working together. And that's what they're trying to do in destroying these murals and these great pieces of art from the New Deal. And stopthedemolition.org is the URL. We're going to be producing a lot of content on it, demanding that GSA actually writes a letter that says this is off the table. This is not for sale. And we will continue fighting until we win.
Alex Lawson, Social Security works. It does work. It does work. It does work. It does work. What's the final? What do you want us to know as we go on? I mean, I've got whiplash.
Yeah. Just know that if you're ever feeling alone or down, you come to socialsecurityworks.org. Email me. My contact info is on there. We have actions happening across this country every single week. 1, 2, sometimes dozens. We have a day of action on January 14th on Social Security coming up. We'll have actions at dozens of Social Security offices across the country. You don't need to be able to organize hundreds of people. It can just be you and a few of your friends. It can just be you. But stand up and get organized. Feel the power of standing together and fighting back. And know that we're going to keep building. We're never going to stop. The more despicable they are, the more organized we're going to get. And that is what I promise you that the best antidote to that hopelessness or that aloneness that a person is feeling is solidarity. It's connecting with your neighbors, feeling part of something greater than yourself, and really truly understanding what actually makes this country great, which is all of the people, not the billionaires and not the lackeys of the billionaires, the politicians, but all of the people who are willing to stand up, fight back, and know that this country is worth fighting for, that when we follow our better angels, this country, it can do extraordinary things. Right now, we're mired by little men trying to do little things, but feeling the power of all of us united is what will get us through this great adversity that we're facing now. We've faced adversity before. We know how to defeat it. We know how to get through it. And it's solidarity, standing together, shoulder to shoulder, raising our voices, peacefully fighting back.
Amen to that. Well, you know, as my mother says often, diamonds are made under pressure. Otherwise, you just have a hunk of coal. Think about that. We're going to have Reverend Jerry McAfee coming up in a few minutes. He is the pastor of the largest Black church in Minneapolis. And I want to ask him what is going on there. Oh, my goodness. But your analysis, Alex, spot on, as it always is. It's always a joy to have you, my dear brother and friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to joining again as soon as I can.
ASAP. Keep it going. We got a lot to talk about, and we have a lot of work to do together.
We do. Thanks so much.
Much love to you and your family, and again, Happy New Year. Coming up, another hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Thank you.